Hello everyone, welcome back again. In today's class, we will learn how to create a jump link in HTML. So before we get started, let's look and do an example. So out here in this example, we have a long list of articles here, long list of documents. So instead of letting the user to scroll for very long, we can have a link out here in this example. It is written code section 2, so when the user clicks it, it will take the user to section 2. So these hyperlinks, they are basically used when you have a long list of documents where you want your user to jump from one part to another. We can use a jump link. So this jump link, they are similar to hyperlinks, but the difference is that in a jump link, they are used only to link to a same page or within the same page only. It is not used to link or redirect the user to another external web pages. They are used to link certain part of your documents within the same HTML pages. So to start off, let's start it from body tag. So to create a jump link, we need two components. The first one is we need to have a link so that when the user clicks it, it will take to the link documents. And then another one is we need to have an ID or a name to a particular part or a specific part inside your documents where you want your user to take. So we need a link, and then another one is we need an ID or else a name. So let's try to create it. So let's start with heading 2. So for our example, let us just simply write chapter 1. Okay, let's close it. After that, inside this we will try to write a paragraph. Let's copy paste some documents. So make sure that the document is long. If the document is short, we will not be able to see the working of this jump link. So I have written a small paragraph. After that, let's create one more heading 2. After that, let's name it as chapter 3. Chapter 3. Inside this chapter 3, again, let's have a small paragraph. Let's copy paste it. So whenever you do it in your real life project, it does not mean that it should be a chapter 1, chapter 2, or chapter 3. It can be any article, or it can be any contents as you wish, but you can use this jump link when the content is too long. Okay, after that, let's create one more heading 3. Let's write chapter 4. Okay, now let us try to copy paste the same paragraph from above and then paste it here. Chapter 4, chapter 3, chapter 1. Okay, chapter 1. Okay, chapter 2, chapter 3. After that, let's create one more as a chapter 4. So let's say we have 4 chapters, and then you want your user to navigate from chapter 1 to chapter 4 or chapter 2 or chapter 3 or so on if it is so too long. So first thing what we have to do is we have to create a link somewhere. You can create anywhere, wherever you want it, but let's try to create above this chapter 1. So what we need is we need a link. So a href is equal to, so whenever we write a jump link, inside this we need to create a value starting with a hash. After that, let's say you want the user to go to chapter 2. right? So let's say let's write ch2. After that, outside here, let's write go to chapter 2. After that, we have to close the link. Now when the user click that chapter 2, it should go to this chapter 2. So inside this chapter 2, we can create an ID. So let's write an ID is equal to, let's write ch2. Alright, so if we write out here ID as ch2, up here whenever you create your link, it should be same. We have to write the same ID name, so that when the user clicks it, it will go to chapter 2 here. Okay, again let's create one more link to go to chapter 3. href is equal to hatch, let's say ch3, go to chapter 3. Okay, now when the user clicks here, we want it to take to chapter 3. So let's go back here, out here. So instead of creating an ID, if you want to use a name, we can simply write a name is equal to, we have written ch3 like this. So this one and then this ID should be same. So you can use this type of ID to link it, or instead of an ID, if you want to have a separate name, you can use like this also. So let's save it, save as, let's just write charm.html. okay, now let's try to view it inside our browser. Okay, here I have a long list of documents here. If I could click on chapter 2, it will go to chapter 2 here. If we click on chapter 3, it will go to chapter 3 here. So wherever you want your user to take, you just have to specify the ID or a name, and then we have to create a link from where you want your user to go. And so out here, let's give one PR. So for example, you again let's create one more link here. href is equal to, let's take our user to chapter 4, go to chapter 4. Okay, so when the user click the chapter 4 with an ID ch4, it should take to chapter 4 here. So let's create an ID here. ID is equal to ch4. So it does not mean you have to give ch1 2 3 4. You can give any ID name, but make sure that this ID name and then the link where you added out here should be same. Okay, let's save it, go back, and then when we refresh it, it will have 4 links here to go to chapter 1, 2, 3, and then 4. If I click chapter 2, it will go to chapter 2. If I click chapter 3, it will go to chapter 3. If I click chapter 4, it will go to chapter 4 here. So again, let's say this is the end of our documents. What if we add a link out here, so that when the user clicks out here, it will go to again chapter 1 here. Alright, so in that case, we have to give an ID here, after that link at the bottom. So let's give ID is equal to ch1. Alright, so we have given the ID there, so that we have to go to bottom. After that, here we have to create a link. Here href is equal to hatch, we have given ch1 as an ID. Let's say go to top or go to chapter 1. Alright, let's save it. Let's go to our browser, refresh it. Now when the user click chapter 4, it will go to chapter 4. After that, out here again we have go to top or go to chapter 1. So when we click that one again, it will go to chapter 1 here. Now the same process we can follow, like you can allow the user to go from chapter 2 to chapter 4. Okay, let's try that one. So out here, where is my chapter 2? Okay, out here, let's try to create a link out here. Href is equal to, let's take the user to chapter 4, ch4, go to chapter 4. Okay, so inside chapter 2 we have given a link to go to chapter 4, so that when the user clicks it, it will come down here. So let's save it, let's refresh it. Okay, so inside our chapter 2 again we have given a link to go to chapter 4, so when we click it, it will go to chapter 4, and then it will come back to chapter 1 again. So that's how we can create a jump link to move around within the same HTML pages. So the only difference between the hyperlink and then the jump link is that the jump link, they are used to allow the user to navigate within the same HTML pages. And then to create a jump link, we need to have a link. After that, that link, it should be linked to an ID of that particular part of your HTML pages. That's all. See you in the next class. Thank you.